Alright, hello everyone, Mark Sajan again. So this is our squirrel, and if I play the animation, this is how it looks. This is just a basic forward jump with a spin, and we will add obstacles to this. So right now, this time, we are creating an animated obstacle course for the squirrel. So there is a prepared file for this. So just let me go to File, Append, and the obstacles, and use the objects, and because of the proper naming it will be a fairly easy ride. So let me hit append. So these are the obstacles. I will just hide this away right now, pressing H. And to get a better view of these, we can go to in the viewport shading area and go to solid mode and choose random color, which helps to identify the various elements in the course. Okay, so, and of course if I play the animation right now, this is somewhat proportionate to my animation. So what I have is basically a 2-meter forward jump. So this is where the whole course starts, and we will explore these things, just giving you ideas what you can do beyond character animation, and just a few basic things to get some life into the scene. Okay, so this is a kind of a pendulum. We want to swing this, and to do that, first of all, we need the location. So I'm curious about what axis I can rotate and where is the center of this whole thing. So as I see the point, the location, the centered pivot point is located pretty well. Now this is we are in local mode, which one is great, also written here. So if I rotate on this axis, which one is the y-axis, now this thing starts moving right, and we will swing it left to right. Okay, let me undo this. Turn on animation and swing this guy and look for the channel. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the exact channel that I have here. This should be the y-axis, y on a rotation, so that's what we're looking for. And this key is created at 46. Of course, we don't want to do that. Let me bring it back to the first, and GX, and yep, on the first keyframe we have the last at the 70. Maybe it will be not too much, so we will add some more, but right now we are looking for the Y, the rotation. So Y rotation is selected, and we can go to modifier, and the modifier is a built-in function. And the built-in function is, by default, we have this sine method. So basically it's going back and forth. Alright, so let me just play this. And of course the strength is too much. And if you wish, you can create a value offset. So if you want to adjust where this whole change is performing, keep an eye on this. Now I have set the backspace to a reset individual values. So keep in mind when I'm using backspace on these, I have a setting. Let me just present this. So preferences, and where we are, key map and key binding, and backspace. And backspace reset to default value. Now be careful, because by default this one is turned on. So it will reset all the values in a column. I don't really like it, so this is usually the first move. I turn this off so I can individually, if I hover over something and press backspace, that will just simply reset the value. Okay, so that's it. And of course we want to change the phase, and the phase to make it somewhat 0.2. Oh yeah, that's kind of believable. Swing, it's too fast. Of course we want to animate it later on. Okay, so that's decent. All right, that's decent. Now what else? To add some more excitement to this, we can actually copy this whole thing. So let me just press Shift D, and on which axis is this? X-axis, Y-axis, yeah, Y-axis. So now we have the secondary piece. I'm not sure about the name, so I will use F2. And yes, it's a little bit annoying that it cannot really automatically name the standard way like other 3D softwares, but we have the default naming in here. Okay, and a phase offset can help us too. Okay, let me select this guy, and now what we see here, this built-in function, this is related to the first one. Okay, so this is the channel that is still active and selected. So if you want to adjust this particular one, you have to look out and look for ARM002 and look for Euler rotation, this one, and you can adjust the offset. All right, so let me see the offset. Okay, this is fairly nice. Yeah, we have a small window, maybe a bit more. Oh yeah, so now we have a little bit wider gap to jump through. Okay, that's it. We can move forward to the next type. Oh yeah, I see there is this animation here I've accidentally created. This is happening on the y-axis location. So let me go y-axis location and just simply delete this key on y-axis. Delete the key, and now, yeah, because this is the right position. Okay, that's it. Going on here, and we want to animate from the first frame. So the first frame, it is there, and I can press in a location area, I can press I. So now we have a key for that, and we want to hold it for about maybe 10. So I will hit I again to create another keyframe, and then a fairly fast move. Not crazy fast, but somewhat fast. Okay, so now it's opening up. Let me just see what's going on. Okay, sliding down, great. And we want to keep this slide present. So we're moving on the Z-axis and want to hold it for a while to give some room. And then going back, yep. And copying Ctrl-C this frame and Ctrl-V that one. Okay, so let me just play the single animation. Okay, we can play later with this, but right now what we have animated is basically the Z-axis. So let me just close these and look for the gate door and the gate door Z location. And we need a modifier, and the modifier is the cycles. So cycles, what cycles does, it will repeat the animation that we have, and this is why you have to build in the pauses and build in the way back. Okay, in order, if you want to have a good control over these, so you have to create a loopable animation. Now it's relatively fast. So we can just select these, and okay, where we are, this is the Z location and only the Z location. So I will turn off everything else. So pendulum is not visible. These locations are not visible. Okay, just keep it clean, easy. Where we are, Z location, and we can actually select this. Go to the cursor with the very first keyframe, and I can scale it up slightly, or just select these guys G and X and moving on the X-axis. So now it's a little bit longer closed. There's a slight opening. Maybe the opening should be a little bit longer as well. So G, X, and definitely we need more keyframes to get into, to fit these animations into this. Okay, that's decent. So now this gate is opening up. It uses the cycles modifier. Okay, now move on. Here's a Ferris wheel, and the Ferris wheel needs a little bit more attention. It is a bit more complex. The reason is we have a rotational movement, so we have to drive this thing. We need to add the speed for that, and we will use bones, so that's a little bit of a different attitude. We also have to link the 3D mesh to the bone, parent it directly. There's no deformation here, only transformation is going through. And we have this little tray, and this tray is swiveling around, so it is like a pendant, so it is always pointing down, and we have to use bones to achieve that way of movement. Okay, so here we are. I will just select these guys and isolate them, and we want to create a bone based on this 3D model. So right now the center of the 3D model is presented there. I see location is 0. The way, if you don't have it, you can press Ctrl A and location to deltas, and that way it is reset. The same thing, rotation is fine. There's no movement scale is 1, which one is great. So I'm using Shift S and cursor to select it, so now the 3D cursor is placed there. So if I'm pressing Shift A and armature and single bone, the single bone will be there right now. And honestly, I can keep it this way in this orientation. It doesn't matter. It will rotate it around in circles. But what we do need is we need another bone. So the other bone will be created here. Now to do that, first I will select this little kind of a hinge tray. I will just demonstrate what's going on, and let me turn off animation for now. We can press Shift S and cursor to select it, so now the 3D cursor is placed there. And what we will do is we will create a new bone that's going from here, but this bone is part of the armature. So here's a single bone. This is an armature, and I will just right here rename it to Ferris rig with capitals. Okay, so Ferris rig, where we are. Here's Ferris rig, and we have inside the Ferris rig we have one bone. Okay, so that will be the axis or wheel. It's better, it's easier to read. Wheel rotation. Okay, so that is wheel rotation, and we need another like a tray movement, or just a tray bone. That's it. Now let me go to a side view, Ctrl 3. This is the left orthographic view, and number 3, and select the bone. And just to keep things a little bit more tidy, we can go to Stickman, viewport display, and show in front. We can actually show the names as well, so now it's a little bit easier to read what's going on. So that's wheel rotation, and we are in object mode. We can go to edit mode, select this guy, select the root of it, and hit E to extrude, and I will extrude it downwards and on the Z-axis, and this is great. So now I want to move it away and align this thing to that moment, to that position, or yeah, G, and there we are. Okay, this is fairly nice. Now I just eyeballing it. If you wish, you can accurately place it, but right now it was fair enough if it's just somewhat there. Okay, what else? We have to make sure that this bone is connected to the other. So right now, if I'm selecting this one and shift selecting the other one, and I can press Ctrl P, I can choose keep offset, and when this keep offset is on, now this little line, this is called relationship lines. This is now indicated, which one is good at the beginning, and once you're done with the rigging, you can turn it off. It's just the feedback that, okay, you have created something. The other thing that you can do is highlight the bone itself and go to the bone area, bone properties and relations, and now we have this wheel rotation assigned. Now here's what happens. So if I select this bone in pose mode, you can switch here in pose mode or Control Tab, and Control Tab to pose mode, Control Tab to object mode. So that's working as well. If I start rotating this guy, it will take the bone, but as you see, the orientation of the bone is also copied. This is a full link. Now to break that, we can actually limit this behavior. So here's the child bone. This is what we have selected first, and shift selected the wheel rotation. That is the root of this, the parent of this bone. And we can turn off rotation, inherit rotation. So we are not receiving any rotational data. So now it rotates around, but the bone is just pointing downwards, which one is exactly what we're looking for. Okay, great. Now it's time to link the elements to the bones. Okay, how to do that? So we have to go back to object mode and select the wheel, and holding down shift key, and I'm selecting the bone. Now this way, because we are in object mode, we are selecting the wheel and the armature itself, the Ferris rig itself. We are not selecting a particular bone in the rig, we are selecting the rig itself. And this is time to switch to pose mode, and then make sure the actual bone is highlighted. So you can click away, you can switch to this one, but of course we don't want to do that now because we are linking the wheel to the bone. And I'm using Control P, and we have different methods. So right now we are linking to a bone, so we will choose the bone version, but typically this is where you are set the armature deform with automatic weights, but again we don't need weights because it's just a rigid kind of a transformation going through. Okay, so bone. And what does it mean? If we are selecting the bone, start rotating, now the wheel is rotating with the bone. Great. So we have to do something very similar to the tray. Let me leave pose mode, go to object mode, select the tray first, shift select the armature, that's the Ferris rig. And this is falsely named rotation 001, so I'll repair that just a second. So that is the highlight, and we are going to pose mode and select the particular bone we want to link to, and Control P and bone. And now what happens? But let me first rename it. Wheel rotation. It's not wheel. It is tray and tray bone. Well, that's it. Okay, so this is a tray bone. This is the wheel rotation. So what happens now, if we select this guy and start rotating, now it carries this little thing, okay, and it's always pointing downwards. The only thing that you have to check, and I'm not 100% sure it's perfect. Oh yeah, it's still fine, all right. There's not much room here. Okay, so if you are meticulous about the technical issues, yeah, it could be really annoying if you have a rendering and in the rendering this tray is just disappearing in the ground. So be careful with that if you are animating and creating something like this. Okay, let me press Alt R to reset. And the bones, we don't really want to see them now. So what to do, we are going to armature level. Let me turn off the names. And still visible, which one is great. We have to add a kind of an engine to this bone. So what type of rotation we want. First of all, I don't really know what is the rotation. And definitely I want to go with XYZ Euler. Same thing, XYZ Euler. So here's the bone. Rotation is X-axis. So to find that, I will just turn on and create a key for that. And let me look around. So gate door, we don't want to see that. This is wheel rotation. This is X rotation if I remember correctly. So let me turn this off. We have X rotation. We have that key there. And honestly, what we do want is selecting the channel, go to modifiers and add a modifier at generator. So what it does is just creates a kind of a linear curve that's going on and on. Now the problem with that, it's just, wow, it's just very, very crazy. So of course we have to slow it down, and we can do it by this formula. So that's 0.1. And look at here, still pretty fast. 0.05. Let me see that. Okay. And of course we have to do the magic to make the figure stick to the tray. Okay, otherwise it's just no fun. Well, you have to create a contact and stick the figure. I will use a simple sphere to demonstrate the process, but it's time to move forward with the other obstacles. So if we play the animation, what happens is, yeah, the door's opening, hinges, swiveling, great. All right, time's up. Now, here, this will be a cauldron with some acid or poison bath or something like a little bit of a dangerous substance. And we will use a modifier for that, and also we will animate some properties of the modifier. And then we will create a kind of a path constraint that drive this conveyor. And here is the landing position, the final landing position of the squirrel. Okay, so that's what we do for the rest. All right, now let's take a look at this area. I'm going to stop the animation, select this item, and look for the model. Okay, we are in animation, so let me just switch back because it's a different hotkey. So in the layout area, and select this model, and right now we go and press Z and go to solid, and make sure that we are using the random colors, and Alt E. This is what I was looking for. Alright, so Alt E is my assigned hotkey for this wireframe. Turn it on and off, and it's in layout mode and object mode. Okay, so there we are. This is basically a circle that was filled with a mesh grid, and then a subdivision is applied to it, so just to have some kind of a density. And this is named as cauldron acid bath in here, and the modifier I'm looking for is the displace modifier. So what displace does, it is actually moves the vertices in a pattern. So that pattern could be affected through the modifier. And this is great for creating landscapes and other details you don't want to really sculpt or model manually. So what we will do is, there's a texture. Let me create a new texture. And the texture type, so just clicking on here, it'll open up the texture itself. And that will be a distorted noise. And this is quite strong, but if you adjust here this distorted noise amount, that's affecting the density of the image of the generated texture. So if we want to affect the intensity of the displacement, the amount of displacement that's happening with the strength. So let me go in 0.01 or 5, give it a try. Okay, that's looking pretty neat. I will just 0.08. Yeah, okay, looking nice. Now we can make it somewhat smoother, so this is a little bit faceted. First of all, right click and shade smooth can help, and also we can apply later on a subdivision modifier, but right now this is where we are. Okay, what else? The coordinates is local. This is normal. I will choose the coordinates to object driven. Okay, so what does it mean? I can use an external object, pick it, and by animating the position of the external object, I can affect how the texture is projected on this surface. And because the projection, the texture is used as information to displace the 3D mesh, if the texture changes, the 3D mesh will change as well. This is great for creating stylized fire, for example, and other parts. Now, but let's take a look at here how that will work. So the object we need could be an empty object. Now, because the 3D cursor is somewhere in the 3D scene, I don't really know where is it. Maybe it is hidden. So let me just go back and 3D cursor. Yeah, 3D cursor was hidden. So I can press with this one selected, Shift S, cursor to selected, Shift A, E for empty and P for plane axis, and you can select and adjust the size of it. Right now I'm okay with this 100. What else we can use? A cube. No, it doesn't. It's just plane axis. It's just working fine. Okay, so that's where we are. Now let me steal the name. Function key 2, Ctrl C, and I will use the name function key 2, Ctrl V, and cauldron empty. Okay, so obstacle cauldron empty. So here we are, and this is the mesh, and go to the modifier. We are looking for the object, picking the object. So this is the cauldron, and what happens if I move this, you can see how this little bath is just, oh yeah, it's boiling. All right, so let me just Alt G to reset. Oops, I was not using, well, let me undo this and use Control A and location to deltas, and if I just press Alt G now, it resets to the original position. Okay, because this location to deltas will kind of reset it in place, just to simplify the whole thing. Okay, and yes, we want to animate it. We can do it manually, or we can assign a generator for this. So what type of movement we are looking for? Let me go to the first keyframe and turn on auto key and lift this up slightly. I'm just curious about what changes I make. Okay, so this is Z-axis, and this is not the Ferris wheel, this is the cauldron. Let me turn off these things and Z location, so no any other needed. And I will select the Z location. We see the key there, which one is great, and the modifier is the generator, so it will start moving. Now if it's moving fast, this is just crazy, so definitely we need to go really slow speed, so 0.001, and see what it does. Wow, that's way too slow. So 0.01. Oh, that's kind of believable. Maybe 0.85. Oh yes, I like it better. Okay, so this is not bad, but definitely we want to. I'm not using textures too much here. I'm not using materials here, but because to add some reality to this, to make it a little bit more believable, we can assign a texture for this guy and to emphasize the nature of this, the danger. So to do that, we need a material, and that would be a new material, and I will rename it to acid bath. Okay, and yes, we are going to shading, and just press the comma key, and here we are. So this is basically a white color here, nothing crazy is happening. These are the default materials. So what we do need is, if you don't have turned on in the edit preferences, look for the add-on called Node Wrangler. So add-ons and Node Wrangler. So turn this on. And if you have the item selected and you press Ctrl T, it will generate a nice little linkage with texture coordination, mapping, and image texture. Now we don't need the image texture, so I will select just the image texture, press X. But we do need is Shift A, S, and one thing called gradient texture. This is one component that we do need, and we need a color ramp. Alright, so gradient texture will apply the color ramp for us, and we have a little bit of a control, but let me go through the steps. So Shift A, S, and color ramp, and just place it here and drag, and here we are. So this is connected to vector. It's kept linear, nothing is changing. This is going into the fact color, and this is going out and feeding into the base color. So now we have that thing, and because of the recording, my update is a little bit slow, so just keep that in mind. And object driven mapping will happen. Okay, now you can see how the color is just now applied, and we see the gradient, which one is good. The thing that we want is rotate the gradient, so we want to project it from the side, and that means whenever something is rising above a level, it will receive a different color. Okay, so to do that, we can just go and adjust 90 degrees. So now we have that. The issue is, it is there, but it's very, very subtle. The reason is the scaling is a bit off. So by changing the scaling, you can see the more I scale, the more relevant this whole gradient will be. Okay, so I will use this as a guide. So the black areas, these are the peak areas. So this is now showing the sample, so this one is selected, and I can pick the sample and choose it to a kind of a reddish color. Okay, this is red means hot. These are the hottest areas, and we can adjust another one in the middle. That could be a somewhat yellowish tone. Okay, a little bit yellowish tone. All right, this is a nice transition from the red. And for the last, we can just adjust a kind of bluish tone. Oh, sorry, greenish tone. Now, I'm afraid this one is not strong enough. Okay, here we are. Okay, so that's how it looks. You have to find the right amount of height for this. Okay, let me see that in animation. So let me play this, and I think it's fairly believable. Maybe this little the green is a bit strong, so I will just reduce that green, maybe even the color to a little bit less intense. Yeah, that's how it goes. Alright, okay. So, not just the simple stuff. Something is boiling there. It shows that, okay, that is a little bit dangerous. We see here the changes. Everything is updating and animating. And we can move forward to create the path constraint. Now, that could be a little bit tricky sometimes. Let me first stop the animation, go to the first keyframe, and leave shading mode and go to layout mode and see what we have. And of course, in layout mode, if you want to see the material, you have to press Z and go to material preview, and then you will see the squirrel color and also this one and every other thing that you have adjusted. Now, so here we have the path, but the path is not just a single model. The path is actually two curves. This curve is using an I-beam cross-section. So the way to do it, I don't have the I-beam cross-section anymore, but it's from a circle, so it is created from a curve, circle, then all the points set to vector, and you can subdivide it and create this kind of an I-beam shape. That's one method. So the spline can actually have a path animation, and it can have geometry. So when we have a geometry and you choose object, you can pick the cross section, and that will create this kind of an I-beam that we have here. So that's the same process, but I duplicated the curve. So now there's one curve is used for path, the other curve is used for generating the 3D mesh. So this is the curve used for the path. This is the name of it. So OBS conveyor path. And this is a little device that clamps on the track, and this will travel along the path. And this is the actual tray that will pick up the squirrel. Okay, so the squirrel can jump up here to, to avoid to be boiled, and then finally just landing at the place of victory. Okay, so here we are. So that would be a little bit of a movement issue with this. But first, these are not connected in any ways. So this is one model here. It can freely move. So we have to make sure that this one is actually following the clamp. Okay, but first, clamp is selected, path is selected. So clamp first, path second. And I'm using Control P and choose follow path. So when follow path is used, and I'm starting the animation, this is what happens. So now it moves, but it moves endlessly. Okay, so the reason it's happening because the amount is from, this is 0%, this is about 10%, and of course this is about 100%. Now what it does when we are setting this up, it automatically assigns, so path is selected, shape object data properties for the path is shown here, and we are looking for path animation. Now what you need to know, that here's this frames value. That frames value is giving you a number, the time that it takes to slide through the whole path. So if it's shorter, that's faster. If it is longer, it takes more time. That's what it does. The evaluation is actually marks a spot where this is actually reaching on the wall. So that is, imagine that this is the speed and this is the actual position where this is already progressing. All right, this is working a little bit oddly, so it's easier if we do it in action and see it for ourselves. Now by default, if we play the animation, we have a generator, and that generator starts from the first keyframe. Now I will just delete that, but before I will just delete that, and that is deleting the animation part of this whole thing. And the conveyor path is still here, but we have no animation key, and if we play the whole thing, there's nothing really happening. So let me go to the first frame. The overall length of this travel, 100 in this case, is good, but just to mix up things, I will set it to 90. And the goal is to start the whole thing about a 50 frame. Okay, so let me just type in 50. All right, so of course this 50 is not really good, but it's just to demonstrate what if you want to delay the whole movement and time the movement when this is actually starting to move. So at 50 we are in animation. Let me just click on animate property and set this to, actually 0 is just perfect. We don't need to set it. Just make sure that you have this keyframe created, and then we have the NURBS path, we have evaluation time, and there we go. That is the time. So this is where this whole journey starts. Okay, to make sure that the whole path is done, so it's going all the way through, we have to set the evaluation at least to 90. So what we'll do is, if this one is 50 and we have a 90 value, we can go to 140, create a key, and set evaluation time to 90, and hit I. Make sure that we have the key, but again, out key is on. So that means from 0 to 50, nothing is happening. From 50 to 140, the whole animation will perform. Okay, so that's what you have to know. If you want to slow down the movement, you can do it by increasing the frames number. So why do we care about this? You can actually stop this whole thing and you can go back and forth. So again, this is the speed, and this is about evaluation time, how much it takes on the road. Okay, if you wish, we can add another key, and that key could be different. All right, so that's now it's moving forward to reaching a point, and yeah, I was just not marking the key. Okay, so let me just make sure that this one is here. Yep. So here's the key, and I'll set it again and hit I, and even further. Okay, so now it moves out and just moves back. Okay, so that is the concept basically. Just let me delete the key. We don't need this one, and just simply going from one direction to another. Okay, that's nice. Now, what else do we need? Of course, we want to make sure that this is actually following the whole stuff. One thing that you need to be aware of, this will be kind of a hinge or a pendulum, like it will swing freely. It's not perfect regarding to physics and geometry, but this one looks okay. What you have to take care of is this position, so it is right in the shaft. So if you're creating anything like this, because the path is will twist and alter the position of this guy, so it's kind of a ball joint kind of movement here. So here's the element, and we need a constraint, and a constraint is a copy location constraint. So we don't really want to copy rotation as well. This is why we are not simply just parenting. So let me click and drop it, and what it does when we are reaching to the 5th, now it travels, but as you see, the orientation of the clamp as it slides through, it is changing, but the way this little tray is moving is just simply always pointing downwards. All right, so this is great if we want to animate the squirrel and stick to it. Okay, now what else? You can still animate this whole thing. So if it starts at 50 and it starts moving, maybe at 50, 55, we want, oh no, maybe at 60, we want to generate a delay. All right, so like a delayed movements, and going back to the first keyframe, that's 50, and Alt R to reset the rotations. Now we have kind of a swing in the beginning. Okay, so that's it. And when it stops, it should be a little bit different. So the way it stops could be affected by the curvature. So let me just, I'm happy the way it starts. So it's going forward, yeah, and this is evaluation time only for a conveyor path. Anything else? The tray, I'm not curious about the tray now, only this one. So this is our path, this is our curve, and hitting A and comma. Okay, there we are, and this is where it stops. This is where it stops. So to change that, we can select only that part and go to vector. So now it stops with a quite strong way. If I press Ctrl H, I can see the handles and just add some not dampening, but you know, just a little bit of a softness, so it's not that super harsh of a stop. Okay, it's still a quite articulate stop, but it's not like a crazy stop. Okay, and of course we can swing it back. Okay, what orientation? We'll go with a global and create a keyframe here, and for this one it's the tray, so it's not visible, but this is object transform, and a few rotations and a couple frames off, and just move it. And I'm using the global mode now because it's twisted in the 3D space a little bit. Okay, so we are using a different way. Oh yeah, and it travels and stops nicely. Okay, that's it. It's time to move forward and create the link constraint. If we want to stick to our little squirrel. So how to make it happen that you can actually jump on a tray and stick to it. So the way to do it is, here's the Ferris rig. Let me turn off the Ferris rig itself, the rig with the bones, so the bones only turned off. Let me go back with it, and we need a point here. So Shift S and cursor to selected, and Shift A and empty and P. Now I will just move it to the bottom and move it a little bit out. So this is where the squirrel will jump, and the look of it will be a little bit different. So I would choose the single arrow and not 100 centimeter. We don't need that one. Okay, so that's what we do. Now here's the element, and I will directly just link it to the tray. Okay, not to the bone. I can do that as well, but right now just selecting this item, holding down Shift key, selecting the tray itself, and Control P, and key object keep transform. So what it does now, if I play the animation, it just moves around and around and around, and we have that point. Okay, this is kind of an additional point in the game. Alright, let me go to the very first frame. This is our initial position, and we need a 3D ball. Okay, so Shift C, that resets the position of the 3D cursor, and Shift A and mesh, and we need a UV sphere, and just scale it down, and right click and shade smooth, and Shift Control A, and scale is reset, and I will just move it here and zoom in, lift this up, and this will be the initial position of this ball. Very rough. So to make this initial position a valid location, now we have animation keys turned on, but on the very first keyframe, so I don't really care about this. Where do we have now these? This is the sphere, everything else is visible. Okay, here's the sphere, we have the key, doesn't really matters, and now Control A and location to deltas, and that will reset the whole thing. And now we can animate this. So just press I, and this will jump at yeah, this will be a really high jump, so we have to take care of from here. Maybe at 6 it's already jumping up, so let me see that. Turning on the key and Control 3 and G, and just moving up here. So what happens, we are moving up. Okay, but the path is already moving. So let me just look in here. So at 6 we are there, but it doesn't care. So we have to shoot a little bit higher in here at 6, and then there's an engagement. And of course, if we wish, we can just simply drag this to add a little bit of a curve. Okay, so it's jumping up and reaching there. Okay, so that's it. This is the rough animation for that. Okay, what's happening? We have a contact. This is the contact, basically, this moment. So at this stage, I will go in and look for the object constraint. So we are not contacted yet. I'm setting up the object constraint and go with child off. So child off, this particular element, this empty, this point. So this is a child. Now influence is set to 100. So what does it mean? It is rotating now constantly. Okay, which one is not really good. So what we want at 6, the influence should be 0. So it jumps freely without any constraint hassle. So it jumps up at 6, it's free, and at 7 we have now a new key where the influence is at about 1. And yeah, I have to manage this, move it better in position. Okay, so just move it on keyframe 6 to have a better contact point. So there's no influence at this stage. Running. Now we have the influence. Now the path is just going on. So we're traveling with this guy. And probably we want to jump off somewhere, maybe here. Oh, so we want to release this ball somewhere around 50. So what I will do is at 50, I will hit the key, make sure we have influence 1. With 1 frame off, hit the key and set this influence to 0. And of course the ball will travel somewhere in the 3D space. What I have to do is just G and grab and move a slight position change. And at 25, we are just moving back it to the position. So where we are, it stays there, and then just it moves away. Okay, and if we wish, this could be already a jump. All right, so that could be enough. So now it's not traveling with the whole thing anymore. Okay, so repeat what is happening here is there's nothing keyed yet. At 56 we have a keyframe 57. Let me undo this, move 1 frame off. We have a keyframe and then 1 frame on, and the keyframe is set to 0, and there we are. Now the ball moves back because when it's released there's no contact. So what we want at 56, I want this to move back in position. So what it does here, we have this kind of a little bit weird offset thing that flies off. So what we have to do is make sure that we have keyed on both frames. On 55, where the influence is at high, so we are just moving this back. And at 56, the influence is a bit lower, but we still have a keyframe. So in both, we have to have a keyframe. All right, it's traveling with it. Now this is gone, and this is not traveling anymore. And if you wish, we can actually just set a couple of frames off and just move it in the side view, G, and just drop it in here, and there we are. Okay, so just playing the animation, then it just goes off. All right, it's really weird as it just fires off, but that's how it goes. Okay, let me fix this. Yeah. Okay, the position is a bit odd. It's not the influence, but Ctrl H, to handles are just way too big. Yeah, Ctrl H, we don't need the handles. So we have this movement, and then it flies off, and then just falling back on. Z location is not that visible, so this is why we have this little bit of a change. So I will just select only the Z location, moving a little bit off, and then boom, down. And of course the speed is a little bit strange, so we have to set this to vector. Ctrl H to see the handles actually, and this whole thing could be a little bit closer in time. And of course the landing should be, let me turn off the other locations, only the Z location, and rotations we don't care now. It's just the scales, and just turning the influence is off. So this one, and V and vector. So now it goes there, and yeah. The other thing is that's a little bit different is because, you know, this is just the height, but actually the way it moves in 3D space is happening by this with the Y location. So the Y location is a bit yeah, it's just a bit slow. So let me go in. Okay, it's too much. Going back. Or do I really need that keyframe? Not, I don't think so. And this is easing out. So V vector, Ctrl H to see the handles, and can just make it fairly fast. Yeah, that's much better now. Okay, just moving around, coming in, and then there's the bounce. Okay, and then you can animate forward. All right, so that's it basically. So let me zoom out. So what we have here, we have the swiveling arms, we have the door, we have the Ferris wheel with the rig, and with the constraints, and with the temporary attachment of the ball and corrector. You can travel with it, and of course you can time this path following animation. We have the cauldron animated. So that's basically the whole package. All right, thank you very much, and see you next time. Goodbye.